Hey, everybody. It's Friday. That means this is another episode of There's No Crying in Crochet, the podcast where we take your daily frustrations about crochet and we try to give you some helpful information and a few laughs at the same time because we're just those people.
We are.
I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Debbie from MadameStitch, and this is my cohort in crime.
I am Biz from Busy Crochet. Hi, and welcome everybody.
And we are so happy to have you here. So we're going to do a little business beforehand. So first of all, we both have YouTube channels, Busy Crochet and MadameStitch Crochet, and we would love it if you would subscribe. So that's not just for us, it's for you.
Yeah.
Because I even get notifications for things that I post. So if you don't want to miss anything, you need to subscribe to us because you'll get all the fun stuff in real time. It's pretty cool. It's like getting a gift every time a new video comes out, right? And if you're watching us on Facebook, make sure that you give StreamYard permission to display your name so we can see your name in the chat. Now, this is a pre-recorded episode, so if you're commenting on Facebook this week, it means that your comment will go to Facebook, but unfortunately, we won't be there live to comment back. But you know what? We're going to come in and we're going to comment on your stuff after when we get back on live. All right. So as we do every episode, because we're just that fun, we talk about, we did that one.
Tag.
Okay. I need to hide
just
that
have to take it
There
off.
we go. It's like press the right button at the right time. Yes. So we always start our episode with a little bit of catch up with us so that you get a glimpse into our glamorous lives. I kid you not. And I'm going to let Biz start. What are you up to this week, Ms. Biz?
Just a lot of school and a lot of baby. That's really all it is. This is going to be the same answer every week.
Every week for many months.
For many months, yes. It's such a heavy load between these two classes with history and English, and they're really, really heavy paper writing. So I feel like I'm reading constantly, just gobs and gobs of pages every single day. And my brain.
I know, I'm laughing with you. I'm not laughing at you, darling.
No, I understand. But I've gotten to the point where I realize I am really old because all of a sudden I'll pop my eyes open and I have actually been snoozing at my computer. My brain just shut down and I ended up
that's great.
So those are the times when I'm like, okay, I just need to step away from the computer for a minute. Gotta go get something like, a snack, an orange, something just to give my brain some like natural sugar to wake up.
Oh my gosh.
So much reading.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, it's fun. And the baby's doing amazing. She is so big. She went back to, I guess back to, because her mom works at a daycare. So she did spend the first 9 months at a daycare as well. But she is actually at daycare now with her mom who went back to work at the daycare. So she's doing amazing, loves the kids, loves all of the sounds and the lights and the this and the that. And she's really doing very well. And she comes home and it's kind of like when we send Scout the husky to daycare for the day. She comes home, passes out, and you don't see her for like the next until the next day.
You're so tired.
Almost the same with Maisie. You have to wake her up to give her bottle and change her diaper, and then she's just sacked out for the rest of the night. It's great.
That's what every parent, dog parent, baby parent, every parent wishes for. You find an activity that wears them out and they are out. And you get a little free time. It's great.
So, yeah, I mean, she just sleeps on Yaya's or Nono's chest while mom goes and takes her shower and does her night things and all of that. And so, we still get to snuggle her and see her, but it's not an all-day thing anymore. So what have you been up to?
Oh, my gosh. Well, all of the grandkids sporting events have kicked into high gear, right?
Okay.
So now, this particular week, last week we went to a baseball game, a high school football game, because I'm that marching band grandma geek. I got to see it.
Absolutely.
And this week, there's a game last night, tonight, Saturday, next Tuesday. So, I mean, they're just coming hot and fast. And so, and I'm the grandma who shows up for all of them, right? Except I'm
Go
skipping
you.
today. Well, that's my job as a grandparent is to be the rah-rah cheer guy, right? So I'm
Absolutely.
going to show up for all of them. Busy getting ready for, and you and I are going to talk about the events that we have coming up because they're really cool. What's keeping me busy during the day is getting ready for my crochet along, which starts Monday, September 30th. It is a granny stitch sampler blanket, just
Oh,
like I did
great.
last year.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I am so excited because I got, just as I did last year, I got 12 gorgeous squares. This is
A
one of them.
really pretty blanket.
They're really pretty. I chose a color scheme that's kind of outside my comfort zone, but very muted, very fall-like, and
Mhm.
it is simply gorgeous.
It is,
So,
it's beautiful.
um, the pattern pre-sale starts Monday, so I'm in the last stages of putting everything together so we
What?
can get this event started.
That's
And I was
awesome.
taking pictures of it this week. I finished it over the weekend, and I still have a couple ends to weave in. That's all right. I took pictures with I just hid them.
I was
Don't
gonna say
tell
it's the art
anybody.
of
I
decorative
just
tucking.
right. But but I've taken some videos and pictures, and I'm really excited. But you also have a blanket-related event coming up. Tell
Yes.
us about that.
Yes, one of the reasons why we're pre-recording is because this weekend I have what's called the Crochet Blanket Summit, which is hosted by Hortense. I'm not sure that I'm saying that right, with Knitting with Chopsticks. And she has put together a 4-day free blanket summit that is basically teaching everybody how to create your own blanket. But she is covering absolutely every subject. There
Mhm.
is color work, there is Tunisian, there is corner to corner, there is um mosaic. There's everything is being covered, and she's done a really great job of like blocking days out, like with a subject. So day 1, a lot of it is just your precursor stuff, like how to figure out how much yarn you need, how much, like uh just really all the beginner things. And
Mhm.
then the next day is, I think, I'm gonna be wrong probably, but I think the second day is about color work, and the third day is about like a bunch of different stitches. That's the day that my presentation is going to be happening. I believe it's whenever you want to watch it. I don't know that it's at a particular time. You just click the link and watch the video. But the I am also going to be available though in part of a Q&A on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock Central Time, 10 Eastern, for unique blanket designs. I wanted to be there for the afternoon one as well, which is designing your blanket, designing your own blanket. But we are celebrating my son's 28th birthday on Saturday, and we'll be busy doing that in the afternoon. So if you
It's
can, I'll have the link in the description so that you can go
Mhm.
and sign up. It's free. It's completely free. There is a super value, like um
You can get
up,
bonuses and stuff,
yeah,
but you have to
something like
pay
that. You
for it.
can pay for being able to keep access to all of the videos and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But if you don't have the money or you don't want to do that, it's a completely free
Yeah.
event.
Yeah, I did it last year. My subject was how to choose the right yarn for your blanket.
Okay.
And it was a great event. It really was.
Yeah.
It serves everybody seems to love making blankets, crocheting blankets. I'm not gonna lie. I love making blankets too. I don't do it as often as I should, but it's just such
Yeah,
a
the subject that I
great
have is how to combine stitches to make your own blanket.
yeah. And you go into storytelling, don't you?
A little
Because you're
bit.
the
I had to really, really, really tailor
oh.
that back because I think I had told you I did a bunch of practice runs, and I was at like 15 minutes and I hadn't even gotten through half of my material. I'm like, girl, you got to shut up and go back. So I had to really edit myself, which that's really hard for me to do, as you can tell. I'm a
Yeah.
talker.
No. You're
So hopefully the
I love it.
information that is out there is going to be really, really helpful to you.
Yeah, we encourage you. Yeah, we'll put those links in the description when we post the video on Friday. It will be going live.
Yes.
All right. So we should get to our subject because
Yes.
everybody talks about this subject and it's never with a positive. So we're going to try to help you with this subject. I don't have a banner for it. I'm just simply going to say it. Our
Yeah.
episode today is a crochet skills episode, and it's all about frogging.
Yes.
All about frogging. So is the frogging is just the bane of our existence. We, as
Yes.
crocheters, when someone mentions frogging, it's cringeworthy. It's like, you didn't really just say that. I have to frog now. Are you serious?
Hmm.
And it's just something that we absolutely hate to do.
Hmm. And it's
What
just 100% a part of the, if you're going
it
to
is,
crochet, you're going to frog.
right? So, what is frogging, and how did it get its name? I kind of looked this up a little bit, but it's common knowledge that
Yeah.
it's called frogging because it's the act of ripping out. So rip it, rip it, rip it. I don't know what genius came up with it, but it's fabulous. Um, it conjures up this image of a frog taking out stitches. I don't know. It's such a great meme. But frogging is the act of ripping out your work. That's
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Um, so I've actually seen people ask about frogging, and I get it. It's if you're new to the art of crochet,
Hmm.
frogging, what? It's like, what is a
Yes.
whip? What is a UFO? What are those
Well,
things in crochet?
even things like, how do I pronounce skein? Is it skein
Right?
or is it skein?
That should be one of our crochet skills episodes, I think. Yes. All right. So we thought we would start by just giving you some hints about when do you really need to frog?
Mhm.
Because yeah, it's not every time you make a mistake.
Right.
When do you really need to frog?
Yeah. Um, Anytime it's super noticeable.
Hmm.
Anytime that if you look at it, you see a hole. Some people are such perfectionists. They're like, all I'm gonna see is that mistake.
Yep.
Now, if it's a buriable mistake, like you're going over it with another stitch, for the love of God, let it go. But if it's not,
Exactly.
then I have been known to rip back up to 6 rows, 6 to 10 rows to go back and
Ooh.
fix something
Oh,
that,
okay. That hurts, but
oh,
yeah.
it hurts a lot. And what's even worse, okay, so I know we're going to talk about this later, is the pile of yarn. And then as you're pulling it back up, now I know that I ripped it out in a decent order. It should have just
Oh
piled
no,
nicely.
no. I
Somehow
think there's some sort of frogging um,
there's
munchkin
a
or
fairy
something.
that goes down there and
Yeah.
starts to tie all the ends together. So
Yeah.
you're as you're pulling it up, you're getting knots again.
Yeah. I think for me, um, I look at how obvious is that mistake. That's the first thing,
Mhm,
especially if I'm giving it to someone. I don't want that big mistake to be there. Um,
mhm.
but I also think it's important when you're working on something that has decreases, increases, or a new stitch
Mhm.
pattern that depends on a certain stitch count. You have to frog.
Yes,
So, um, so that things come out right. You can't just ignore it at that point,
yes.
because either you're going to be increasing or decreasing stitches,
Mhm.
or or fudging in another place when just frogging back is probably your best bet,
Yeah.
right?
And it depends, like, if it's one stitch, you can make up one stitch
Hmm.
somewhere. If
Yes.
it's 6 to 10 stitches, then you're probably looking at like, no, you really need to just do it over.
Here's an example of when I decided not to frog. I'm working on a project. It's a sweater and a cocoon sweater, and the back panel is a square.
Mhm.
And I I got to the granny stitch round because we know we always have to have a granny stitch something in my work. And I knew that I needed to skip a certain number of stitches between, but it wasn't working out right. And I realized
Mhm.
that the round before I had failed to put 2 stitches
Oh.
where I only put 1. So
Mhm.
I just didn't skip as many stitches. And in that case, you can't see it. It was only 1, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't see it. It doesn't make any difference. If you were looking for it, you'd have to be
Yeah.
counting to
Yeah.
know it. So that made zero difference. Um, so that brings us to, when can you skip frogging? Well, that was an example of when you can
Mhm.
skip it because it
Mhm.
made no difference to the construction of my square or the look of my square. So I was
Right.
able to just happily move on.
Yeah, anytime that you are not going to be compromising the integrity of whatever it
Mhm,
is you're creating, you can avoid frogging. If it's something that you can just, like you said, it's hidden, nobody can see it,
mhm.
you'd have to go digging for it. And if you happen to see it, like if you're one of those people who's laying there on the couch and one day you're just staring at this whatever it is, and you go, hey,
There's
okay, fine, fine, you found my boo-boo.
there's
But nobody is gonna see
right,
it just by glancing at
right.
it.
So that's a good reason not to frog. What if the mistake is so far back that you're almost I mean, there are people who, especially
Mm.
designers, who will be working on a new design, something just doesn't work correctly, and they have to frog all the way back to the beginning. Oh, that just it brings on visions of heart attacks when I'm doing that. We
Yes.
actually have solutions should that happen, but um, I hate it when that happens. I try to count stitches on a regular basis
Oh,
to
yeah.
eliminate having to frog
Yep,
way back.
yep, yep. When you're designing, if you're new to it, if you're not new to it, if you're not used to making sure that you're paying attention and writing down every single row that you're doing yourself a disservice only
Mhm.
because it feels like, "Oh, I have to take this break. I've gotta, stop what I'm doing." Except that down the road, you have everything written out, and if you've been counting carefully, you can just be like, "Oh, well, if I have to make a change here," because I've done this before, where something hasn't worked out and I'm maybe 4 or 5 rows into it, and I realize back here I should have done this or that or the other.
Yep.
I'll just change the information because I can make it work up here,
Yeah.
but I'll just rewrite the information to how it should have been down here. When you've been doing it long enough, you can kind of
Yeah.
fudge over that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But, um, yeah, as far as not writing it down every row, that's just I don't recommend it.
But if you're a maker, having a way to keep track of where you are in the pattern,
Yeah,
looking at the stitch counts that the designer has provided for you, and if they haven't, then see if you can go find that information because you wanna make sure that you don't make a mistake that could require frogging
right,
down the road.
right, and I know counting is a pain in the butt. It is, it makes you stop and have to,
Yep.
especially if what you're making is very dependent upon what your count is. And like when I have patterns where like, hey, you need to make sure that you are paying attention to the count. I'll put that note in there like pay attention.
I do that too. Yep, I do that too, which is why I think our patterns are lauded as being very, uh, maker friendly because we
Yeah.
will put those tips and tricks in there. All right. So we've solved the mystery of when to frog and not to. Really,
Yeah.
it's a judgment call,
It
right? It's a
is.
judgment on if you're a perfectionist, then you're probably going to frog a whole lot more than someone else.
Yeah.
It really is a judgment call, but I highly recommend that you embrace. It's just like weaving in ends,
Mhm.
blocking,
Mhm.
um, doing all counting the stitches, all of the things that we go, I don't want to
Right.
do that because it's interrupting my sacred crochet. Well, yes, but the payoff is tremendous.
It's part of
So
the
make
process. And if you
it's
can make
part of the
friends with
process.
it, It
Yeah,
will, I mean, just like anything
exactly.
else we're talking
Yeah.
about, weaving ends, all of these things. I've become a process crocheter and found enjoyment in all of the different things. And never do I go, oh, yay, I get to frog. Yay. Because I'm like, God, I just wasted all that time. Oh my God.
But, Biz, I would posit that if you have the tools and the processes in place that make frogging, "Okay, I have to frog, here's what I'm gonna do,"
Yeah.
rather than going, "Oh my gosh, what am I gonna do with this yarn? Where
Yeah.
am I gonna put it? What are we" and we're about to help you
Yeah.
solve that stuff. So the
Absolutely.
next thing that we're gonna talk about is what happens when you frog? What kinds of things Biz has already alluded to, the massive pile of
Yes.
yarn sitting on the floor next to you
Yes.
that the frogging fairy just came and tossed around so that it's
Like
one tangled
spaghetti.
mess,
Yeah.
right? So that to me is one of the biggest ones,
Yeah.
is knowing what to do with the yarn that you just
Yeah.
frogged out. Now, one of the easiest ways, if you're working from a skein or a cake or a ball, is you just don't frog far enough that you get that big pile. You
Mhm.
frog a little bit, you wind a little bit. You frog a little
Mhm.
bit, you wind a little bit. You do
Yep.
all that kind of stuff back and forth so that you're maintaining some integrity in
Yeah.
that pile of yarn.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing uh, that I want to talk about a little bit about how that big pile of yarn, what can we do to keep it from getting tangled other
Yes.
than just winding it on? What if there's no way to wind it onto a skein or a
Right.
cake or a ball?
So you can also a basket is a good thing to have next to you that will catch it all because not all of us live in pet-free homes and some of us have
Mhm.
carpeting that has pet hair on it. Maybe you don't want to get pet hair on you and you're like, "Oh great, what am I going to do with all this yarn?" Have something to catch your yarn, a bag, whatever, like your project bag, something like that. Make sure it all kind of lands in the same spot. That'll help you with that as well.
You also have some handy show and tell. You talking
I do
about
have some
bobbins
handy
and
show
things
and
like
tell.
that?
Now I don't have any of my bobbins here because I couldn't find them. But like if you're taking apart something corner to corner in Tarja, something where you've been doing color changes, those little bobbins that you can get from the yarn section, those are really great to have on hand so that you can roll all of the little and keep all your colors together so that as you're peeling it apart, you're not just like, oh, here's another and there's another piece and there's another
Oh,
piece and that after a while, that becomes a gobbledygook and you can't find anything. If
mhm.
you can get little bobbins to get all of your colors in place and just kind of keep it that way as well, if you can use the bobbins, you can attach it to your work and you don't necessarily have to cut it off or get rid of it. So yeah, bobbins are a really great source if you're going to be doing color work, ripping.
You also like to wind the yarn into little balls.
I
So, for
do.
instance, if it does get tangled, yeah, and if you absolutely I have been known, rarely, thankfully, that there's just so much to deal with, I have to actually cut the yarn and kinda start over.
Okay.
You can either wind it into a ball, or I love to use my yarn winder to wind whatever I have into a cake.
Hmm.
And yeah, it means a couple of extra ends that I'm gonna have to weave in,
Hmm.
but sometimes it's better just to cut it
Yeah.
and wind it and start over.
Yeah. Yeah, there are gonna be times and we're gonna talk in just a little bit about ways to pull your work so that you're not getting those tangles in there and you don't end up
Mhm.
with those big knots, but there are times and I'm just gonna show you a couple of yarns that I have here, which we probably all have in our stash. But
Yep.
ones that have the hair like this and the eyelashy stuff, those if you don't have to pull them back, don't. If you have to pull them back, keep a needle, something like this close
Mm.
by,
Mhm.
because as it gets tangled around itself, you can just kind of get in there and pick them apart at the knot. Just and go slow. Don't
It's
yank,
slow.
go slow, especially when you're dealing with nightmare yarns like this.
Yeah. Now, those are nightmare yarns, but both of us have worked with yarns that have halo, and
Yeah,
halo is that fuzz that kind
light
of
fuzz.
gives your project a really comfy, cozy look. It's not tightly woven, and they still will grab onto each other.
See the fuzz hanging off of that one?
Mhm. And
That
it
little
doesn't
bit.
show up that badly,
No,
but
it
when you
doesn't.
try to pull it out,
It'll
that
grab
fuzz
around
gets
itself.
mhm.
Norm and one thing I will say is a lot of us like to just go, "Oh," and just rip. Um,
Yeah.
if you can help it, if you can keep yourself from doing it, don't just rip up or back towards your work. Rip away from your work going this direction, because what will
Mhm.
happen is you will find that these little fibers that are in here will get less tangled around each other. I have another one here too. This one is more of like a bulky, it's got some wool in it. This is Scapy's the stone washed,
Oh, I
and it
love
has this
that.
really, really fine halo around it. Can you see that
Yep.
fuzz?
Mhm.
And so this is where I actually learned how to do this stuff, because this stuff was a nightmare to rip apart when we all first started working with it. And they were the ones that were like, pull it to the side as opposed to pulling it up or
Yeah.
backwards
Yeah.
towards your work, because it will, what happens is those little fuzzes begin to kind of create a fabric. What's the word I'm looking
They
for?
interlock. They
Interlock,
interlock
like
or weave together.
when you put it in and you create
Oh, they felt?
felt, thank
Yeah.
you. They begin to kind of felt together. And so that's why you end up with these knots, with these horrible,
Mhm.
these yarns are amazing to work with and they're gorgeous, but all those little hairs there begin to just kind of get together. And that's why just keep a needle, even these yarns, keep a needle close by so you can get in there and just kind of pick
Mhm.
those pieces without having to destroy or cut off what you're doing, because that can get to be a pain in the butt too, because what if you never get that knot out? Well, now,
Right.
depending on how far you are into your project, you gotta, like, what am I throwing the whole thing away?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with that very same yarn, and I had to rip it back, and I didn't know your little trick, which, by the
Mhm.
way, I wanted to my observation with how you just did that was you're actually pulling the yarn out the opposite
Yes.
direction of where how you worked it.
Right.
So, you're being very mindful about how you pull it out, but
Yes.
I've actually almost ditched a project because I had already worked it into something that I changed my mind about and wanted to
Mhm.
reuse the yarn, and I was trying to pull it out, and it just was getting caught every couple of stitches, and
Yep.
so I think that's a great way to do it, pulling it down into the side, just the direction that's
Mhm.
opposite from the way that you worked on it.
Mhm. It'll keep everything from just, and now because it's being worked, because you are using a crochet hook, etc., you are already fuzzing that stuff together, and it's
Mhm.
gonna happen even if you are super duper careful. But if you are taking your time and going slow, the knot does not have to be an immovable force. And that's when you break out your needle, you get in there, you take those little pieces apart, and you go keep going.
Yep. All right, let's see here. I think that actually brings us to our next subject because you've already told us one tool that you like to use. So we
Mhm.
have a few helpful tools. There's nothing that's really going to do your frogging for you. It's basically
No.
just taking your hands and doing it. But we've alluded to several tools that you might want to have on hand just in case you get stuck with the big pile. So, talk about that needle one more time. You just kind of go in and
So yeah,
use it to
as far like pretending we have a knot here and there's some of these little fibers, I just go in and I just pick the little fibers apart until it pulls again. And then
yeah.
it might take you a little bit longer, but you are investing. This isn't a cheap yarn. You're investing in your project and you're investing in what you're creating, and you're saving yourself the headache of having to tie things back together,
Mhm.
and you're saving yourself the headache of throwing away and the heartbreak of throwing away something, like I've done that where I've been into a project, the knot was so bad, I just went, "You know what? I'm done," and I threw it out.
And that really is heartbreaking because you've
It's
spent the time and
impulsive.
money, sometimes in a fit of anger. No, just
Yes.
kidding.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. All right. So, one of the tools that I love to use is a yarn winder. Now, if you work with hanks, which are the twisted yarns, you find them mostly at with independent dyers.
Yeah.
Some of the bigger companies are starting to use hanks as well, just
Mhm.
because of the way that they're producing the yarn. But if you have a lot of those that you use, you probably already have a yarn winder so that you
Mhm.
can wind that into a cake. Now, if you're just going to use it for frogging, a plastic yarn winder from Knit Picks or a similar company or
Yeah.
Amazon works just fine.
Yeah.
I wind a lot of yarn because I love to, I'm just an indie dyer junkie. So you may have heard of this one. It's ginormous, but this puppy is a workhorse.
Oh,
Okay,
nice.
so the yarn goes through here. It actually sits like this on the table
Okay.
and it winds the table. So this is heavy metal.
Mhm.
There are plastic molded pieces here and a heavy duty winder here, very stable pieces here, and you can see how big it is.
It is
Um,
very big because mine is the cheap little Knit Picks version, and
mhm.
I don't use it because it doesn't make a big enough skein of yarn or cake.
Well, what happened with me and the plastic yarn winder, the typical one, is that eventually it started to wind some really funky cakes, and
Yes, that too.
the, it wouldn't handle the size of hank that I had.
Yeah.
There's no question. I mean, this is how big your cake can be right
Nice. I'm
here,
gonna have to get me
is
one of
that's the
those.
space between, the arm that threads the yarn up here and
Mhm.
the winder itself. You hook it to a table, it's got a heavy duty winder here, smooth action. I mean, this baby is really styling. The company is Stanwood.
Okay.
It's the only one that I know of that does that heavy duty winder. There are electric winders that I've seen at yarn shops,
Mhm.
that actually have a foundation, but I love my Stanwood. It's expensive in the grand scheme of things. I think I might have spent 70 or $80 on it, and it
Mm.
gave me pause, but I had to weigh, okay, I use it a lot, and
Mhm.
I need to have something that's always dependable, that I can always count on winding something that I can use,
Some
and
things
that's
are
what
just an investment.
and that's what and I've had it for years now. It's still available as far as I know, and there's always a debate about it. I'm not gonna get into the pros and cons, but if you're interested in having something that's going to work and you use it a lot,
Mhm.
the investment is worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that would be one way of doing that too is especially if you can see the end of the piece that you're pulling
Mhm.
off or frogging, you can attach that and then just kind of
Yep,
rip and wind.
exactly. Um, Another thing that you had mentioned was using bobbins.
Yeah.
Could you describe, because I don't use bobbins, so can you describe what shape they are, what they look
They
like?
look like a little fish, and I wish I could find mine. I know I have them in one of my drawers behind me, but they kind of look like a little there's like this little hole or over here, and then there's two little things that come off the end of it over here. So you can either wind it going around and then it indents in the middle. So there's space for you
Mhm.
to wind yarn around it. And it's not meant for big balls of yarn. So these are meant for small applications, especially when you're doing things like intarsia, corner to corner, that kind of stuff where I know we've all done it where we had to make 75 tiny little balls like that where we're
Oh
like
my
and
gosh.
every 2 colors it changes and you just wanna kill yourself. But, so that's what a bobbin does for you. And I don't necessarily use them. I have a tendency to make the 75 little balls just because I don't do well with clunky things in my way.
Mhm.
So what I do when I'm making it is I will either use, sometimes I use a clothespin. You can do the same thing
Mhm.
with a clothespin and just wrap it around that and then
So
just
you put the yarn end, clamp it through the clothespin, and then start to wind.
yes, and then you can either let it go and then attach it to your current work so that you're not losing things and everything stays in place.
Right.
Or the little bobbin ones, it's just a matter of collecting it so that, because I've done it both ways where I've rolled it into little balls, and I've also done it where I've been like, "Oh, here's a piece, and here's a piece, and here's a piece." And then you go back, you're like, "Oh my God, what are all these pieces for, and where did they go?" So, or you end up with a big spaghetti mess again, and then you can't get
Yeah.
anything apart, and you're basically just like, "You know what? I'm throwing all that out because it looks like garbage, and I'm just gonna go get into my skein again and make these whole." It's just, it's wasteful. So, if you can put them on bobbins or something that helps you keep track of where everything is, it just helps keep the whole system cleaner.
Absolutely. Now I have a question for you. Have you ever frogged and then ripped back too far?
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah.
Where
Okay. I'm sure you have funny stories about that. I have a solution. Stitch markers. They are your best friend in lots of different places. Put a stitch marker. I would recommend doing it right before the mistake, not
yes,
after, but right before the mistake so that you stop, you see the mistake, you rip it
yes,
out, you don't go any further.
yeah,
And if you put a stitch marker there, you are golden. You're not going to miss the mistake. Plus, if you're a perfectionist and the mistake isn't very visible,
yeah,
you go, "Oh wait, where was that? I know it's around here somewhere." And it just keeps you from having to look for that mistake
yes.
twice, 3 times, that sort of thing.
Yes, stitch markers are amazing. I
Yes.
absolutely. And if you don't have the little clippy kind where like it looks like this or something fancier, grab you a piece of yarn and
Mhm.
hook it through and do the
Yep.
same thing. Either way,
Make
mark
do
that
with what you
stitch.
got. Yep, mark where you are. Any other tools that you can think of that we might share with our viewers
Not off the top of
and
my head. I
listeners?
mean, a lot of it's kind of intuitive, like what you like
Mhm.
to use. We have created our own um procedures of frogging
Right.
over the years, and that's something that really is a personal thing. I know it sounds weird, like frogging is frogging, but it's not. It's everybody has their own way of doing it. We're just trying to get you to do it as far as like just really paying attention to how you frog. What you do with it is what you do with it.
Exactly. But I wanna make the point again
Hmm.
that having a plan in place, having your tools nearby, one of
Yes.
the one of the things that's so helpful for me is having what I need where I need it.
Yeah.
So if I crochet in my recliner like I do every night, some of those tools need to be nearby, like
Yes.
my stitch markers and my crochet hooks otherwise, you're getting your steps in, thank you, Apple Watch, for, "Oh, geez, I need to go," but think of it this way, you're wasting valuable crochet time when you
Yeah.
have to go search for things, right?
Yeah.
Now
Absolutely.
I have a few helpful websites that talked about frogging. One is by Joy of Motion Crochet, one is by Desert Blossom Crafts, and the other one is by Hygge Crochet too. Hygge is the creating a comforting space.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think it's Swedish. I think Hyggge,
It's
but
kind of
I will
Scandinavian-esque just
it's
because
Scandinavian, yes, but they have great articles about, um, all things frogging. They probably have other ideas from us,
mhm,
helpful pictures, all of that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Uh, I will put those in the description so that you can read them at your leisure,
yeah,
but I think we've covered frogging. It's
yeah,
still everybody's gonna hate it, but hopefully they will hate it less.
Yeah. I mean, frogging's there. Let's make friends with it, right?
Right? Well, yeah. You talk about how you're a process crocheter.
Yeah.
I so wish I were, but I'm not. I'm the let's just crochet all the things and just sit here and just soak in all the stitches and the yarn, and then oh, I gotta weave in that end. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah, I
that
don't know what
person.
it is, and it's changed over time because I didn't always used to be that. I was like, I wanna be doing something new. I was wanna be just like, and I had so many works, just sitting there undone, and to tell you the truth, the things that I threw out because I couldn't find the pattern, couldn't find the yarn anymore, couldn't find the this, couldn't find the that. After I finally came back to it, I decided I was never gonna do that again, and so I make myself
Yeah.
finish. I only allow so many works in progress going at the same time, and, I think it's just come with time and age and all of that stuff. But yeah, I don't know what changed. I think it might have been during designing because you don't have a choice really. Um, in order to make your product look good, and if you're gonna take pictures and yada yada and all that stuff, you have to finish it. You know? I mean,
Kinda
there
do.
is only so much decorative end tucking you can do before your ends start to pop back out.
Yes, I have that on my to-do list for today.
No, I mean, some of the blankets, I will confess, have gone into the blanket tote. And then when I went to give them to people, I went, oh my God, I've got to tuck all those ends in. So, you just what you do for an evening in front of the TV.
Exactly. Which brings us to
Da, da,
what
da.
have you been watching?
We just actually finished up the second season of the show called Troppo, Troppo. It's on Prime, and it is an Australian murder mystery show where the story carries over from the first season into the second season on one of the characters. It has an answer for one of the characters in the first one, but they left it very open for a third season, and it's very good. Great story, good actors, good characters, and if you're character driven, it's a very interesting show.
Is that it?
Oh, no. I mean, we've been
Just the
but
usual stuff.
yeah, we bounce around so much. At night, usually it's like a barbecue food competition show. And then when we go to bed, it's what have we started watching? We're either bouncing between Parks and Rec and God, what's the other one? I can't remember what it is at the moment, but it's one of the shows we've seen. Oh, Monk, because we love Monk. One of my favorite shows. And so that's what we're watching at night. Um, I don't know. It just always depends on who's in what mood.
Yeah,
So
I hear you.
I
Yeah,
haven't
we've
been watching any TV during the day because all I do is read.
that's a little difficult to do at the same time. Those are 2 tasks
Indeed.
that don't multitask happily
They
together.
don't multitask well at all.
No, they do not. The Phillies are going to the playoffs. They just
Awesome.
have to make sure they don't lose their last. They're so far ahead of everybody else in the division. Now they're going for one of the 2 top spots in all of baseball to get a bye for the first round of the playoffs. So
Mhm.
that's what they're hoping for. Although I gotta say, bye weeks don't really help a team. They sort of lose their momentum. You think, "Oh, we're gonna go back into the
Yep.
dugout.
No.
We're gonna go practice a little bit." No, you lose your edge, and
Yep.
that happens all the
That
time.
happens in
So I don't
football
really care
too.
about that. But they're gonna make the playoffs, which is very happy for us.
Yeah.
My daughter and I started watching a show to this past weekend, that's on Hulu. It's a Hulu original, I think, called How to Die Alone. Now that sounds horrid, but the premise is a woman who is single, who's working in an arguably kind of dead end job at the airport, is kind of limping through life, and she's got a quirky bunch of friends, one of whom is the son of the person who manages the entire airport.
Okay.
And it might be based on LaGuardia or something like that, so it's not a small airport. And a series of events happen to her that cause her to think about how she lives her life. She lives in New York, therefore she doesn't want to die alone. And you see all of these vignettes that she's imagining of
Uh-huh.
her just expiring and no one notices.
Oh, no. Oh,
I know.
no.
So it's charming, it's funny, um, it's it's just fun for us to watch. Now it has to be your cup of tea
Mm.
because the humor is not everybody's style of humor, but we're finding it very endearing and fun to watch. There's a
Uh-huh.
lot of character development, which you and I love.
Yes.
So that's our new show. I finished watching last season's NCIS, so I'm all ready for their premiere.
Mm.
And I
Nice.
heard through the grapevine that the Great British Baking Show is coming back in a couple of weeks. Now
Oh, gosh.
they're
What is it gonna be streaming on?
uh is it Netflix? I think it's Netflix.
Probably Netflix.
Um
Like, I feel like I've missed so many seasons of that show. I feel like there's so many seasons out there, and that would be one of those shows that I would buy on DVD, and I would watch it over and over and over again.
yeah,
I love
it's
it so
just so
much.
much fun. Yeah, so that's coming back now. It's going to start dripping out in Great Britain,
Uh-huh.
and then I'm not sure exactly when it's starting on Netflix.
Mhm.
So we're waiting for that with bated
I just always
breath.
feel like America gets gypped with that one so bad because they never like, I never know when it's showing and then I miss it.
Well, I happened to see the announcement on Facebook, and of course, my daughter has Netflix, so they're starting to show that on that feature
Yeah.
highlights trailer kind of thing. So she knew. So you have to kind of have Netflix, I guess.
Yeah, my daughter has Netflix, thankfully, so, I mean, my our kids pay for several of the streaming, we all just kinda share together.
Yeah, well, your daughter lives with you, so
Yeah,
that's there you
it
go.
works.
Yep. All right. Well, that's what we're watching and that's what we've been talking about and that's
Mhm.
what's up with us this week. We've talked all about frogging and hopefully we've helped you with some of the disdain that you have for that particular activity.
Yes.
Just a reminder that starting next week, pre-sale of the 2024 Granny Stitch Sampler Blanket, and it's also a free crochet along starting the 30th. And Biz is a guest speaker in the Crochet Blanket Summit. So
Yep.
look, and that starts
On
tomorrow.
Thursday.
That
Yes.
starts Thursday. So you'll see this
Yep.
on Friday.
Yep.
So you can jump in at any time with a free
Mm.
ticket and go take advantage of
Yeah,
that. So
definitely.
for now, we're going to say goodbye. And we will see you in 2 weeks
Yep.
for an exciting October where we're going to talk all about decluttering your stash and creating a mindful and stress-free craft space. So
Yes, for the
that's the
upcoming
month.
holidays, because that
Yep.
is approaching at rapid speed.
Yes, so we're going to get you all ready for the holiday gift making with a little declutter and de-stash and a whole lot of organization. So
Ooh,
there
ooh.
you go. I know. So for now, we're going to say goodbye. There is no crying and crochet. We're
Yeah,
going to make sure of it. And for
wipe
now,
those
we're going to
tears.
say goodbye and see you soon. So have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.